Well, good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give this lecture and to share my knowledge about cultural issues in Indonesia. I think Professor Nabilin has introduced me, and thanks a lot for inviting me, Professor Nabilin, Professor Franklin, so that I can come here. It's really an honor for me to give lecture in front of you, of the students. I hope that I can explain some cultural issues in Indonesia, but for that, let's see the situation. Maybe some of you already know Indonesia, but for some of you who do not really know where Indonesia or what is Indonesia, then I think we see here, this is the map of Indonesia, especially this part, and the other is part of Malaysia, and you see over there Taiwan and Philippines. Yeah. So this is the southern part of this area, and you see here a lot of islands. Indonesia, as we see, geographical facts, this country, we call it Tanah Air, which means land and water, and you see it really consists of land and water, a lot of water of Indonesia, and we have many islands, so we call it Tanah Air or land and water, and consists of 17,000 islands. Some of them have names, some of them do not have names. So when they disappear, we don't know. Yeah? Some of them may appear when the sea, we have flow. Yeah? Then you'll see sometimes the islands, but sometimes under the water. So Indonesia lies between two continents, Asia and Australia, and we call it Nusantara. Nusantara, which means Nusa Islands. Antara is between, so it actually lies between Asia and Australia. And we have, if you look at the area here, we have 3 time zones. So if you go to Indonesia, the eastern part celebrate first the New Year's, and then 1 hour later the middle part, and then the last one is the western part. So this is the first celebrate the New Year, and then the second, and then third. So we have 3 times celebration in Indonesia for New Year because of difference of times. We have a 3 time zone. This is the east, the middle, and the west. And you know, if you know biology, then you have what you call Wellish line here, and it really something like divide the flora and fauna of this area. If you look at the fauna here and flora, it's quite special. You cannot find in other areas of Indonesia. It's closer here, but it's different. But people is again different. Now, if you look at the flora and fauna, it's like that. You see the situation in Indonesia consists of a lot of islands, and this is also a blessing, but sometimes it's also a problem for us who lives in this area. Now, we have 2 major seasons, I think, maybe like in Taiwan. We have rainy season and dry season. And now in Indonesia is the dry season. Usually, the wet season or rainy season, because it usually starts at September until January, something like that. And then the changes of season, and then you have the dry season. And we have major islands. If we look at this again, this is the major island, Kalimantan, Sumatra, and Papua, and Sulawesi. These are the major islands. If you compare with other islands, they are bigger. We call it as major islands, but we have also smaller islands, like Java, Bali, Lombok. So if you know Bali, Bali is not very big island, it's small island. If you look at this, Bali is very small compared to Kalimantan, Sumatra, but maybe you know more Bali than Sumatra or Kalimantan or Papua, because it's very special in terms of culture. Yeah. Okay, we have that, and then Indonesia, we have 1.9 million square miles of land, because the rest is water. So you see here that this is the 15th largest country. It's very large, but a lot of water in it. And the population, you see here, according to census, 2018 is about 266 million people. But most of them, almost more than half of them, lives on Java. So this is really an imbalanced population distribution in Indonesia. And this is also a big problem for us. And most Indonesians are descended from Austronesian speaking people. I think they are quite related to the what you call Aboriginal people in Taiwan. If I look at the pictures of the Aborigines in Thailand, in Taiwan, then I see that more similarities between the tribes there and the tribes in Indonesia. Mostly are from Austronesian people, and also the language I think is close. Now, if we look at the races, then you'll see that we have Mongoloid, according to anthropologists. We are all Mongoloid, and then we have Melanosoid. That's Papuans. The Papuans are different. They are darker and with curly hair. And Indonesia, we have the first wave of Malay, and then second wave of Malay, and then we have mixed race, of course, due to the encounters of these two races. And we see here, this is according to Southeast Asian history, written by Williams. This is the folk migrations in the past. You see this, and you have there Taiwan, and that's actually the distribution of people in the past. They came to this area actually from the mainland of Asia. That's why, in terms of physical characteristics, we are close to one another. It's very similar. We are called the Mongolian race. But the Papuans are actually here, and they are different race again. Now, Indonesia consists of these two races and a mixture of them. Now, the religion. If you look at the religion of the local people, then the original one is the ancestor worship. It's just like among the Chinese, but now it's because of a lot of influence from Hinduism, Buddhism, and then a little bit change. Then people in Indonesia have contacts with other people. Indian, they are Caucasoid in terms of physical characteristic, so they are different, and they have also intermarriage with the local people, and you'll see also the mixtures of races between Indian or Caucasoid, Asian and Asian. And the religion that come from India is Hinduism and Buddhism. So you'll see this in Java, for instance, and in Sumatra, the heritage of Hinduism and Buddhism. We have also influence, of course, from the Arabic. This is also in terms of race, is Caucasoid. Arabic people, they brought Islam to this area, and also, of course, some influence from India. And we have there syncretic Islam, because before Islam came, we have Hinduism and Buddhism. And we have now in Indonesia a lot of combination, syncretism between ancestor worship, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. So if you go to Indonesia, Islam in Indonesia is not quite similar to the one in Arabs or in India, because some influences from the local culture. And then we have, of course, the influence of the European. And the Europeans brought Christianity, especially this Catholic and Protestant. And we have, of course, then syncretism as well there. So we have syncretic Christianity. If you look at the Christians in Java, it will be different from Christian in Flores or in other parts of the country, because of the the influence of the local culture. So we have actually many kinds of syncretism in Indonesia in terms of religion. Now, this is to give you just some pictures about traditional ceremonies, which some people still perform, especially the Balinese ngaben. You know, they usually burn the corpse. And this is, of course, the ritual of the very rich Balinese, usually from the upper social strata in Bali. Usually they are, of course, from among the nobles, because they have a lot of these things, and they just burn this, and it costs millions of rupiahs. And also, in the past, we have like that in Batak, in Sumatra. We have traditional ritual. Some people still perform that, but it's not quite popular again. But still, in some places, you have that. And then we have also, this is of course another ritual. If you go to Jogja, you'll find this. This is Labuan ritual. This is officials from the Kraton, Sultan Pelis, and they did the Labuan ritual on the southern coast of Jogja. In fact, it is once a year. They brought Sultan's clothes, Sultan's hair, Sultan's nails, brought there, and then they'll put it in the sea, throw them to the sea, and some people will try to get anything from it. And this ritual is performed before what we call labuhan, which means that you throw something to the sea. This is in Yogyakarta. You see the way they perform, and also the dress, the costumes, traditional costumes is different from the others. Now this one is for Tanah Toraja, South Sulawesi. They perform also burial ritual, and they slaughter pigs, of course. You see in some parts of Indonesia, people eat a lot of pigs, like in Papua, in Toraja, and this one actually related to this one. This is in Toraja, burial ritual in Toraja. Usually in Toraja, you don't directly bury the dead. You just keep in the room and you treat them as still alive. Sometimes you give them food and talk to them. It's interesting. The Toraja is quite interesting because they are not afraid of gods. They are not afraid of dead people. So I think when they watch horror film, I don't think they'll be afraid of that. It's not really funny for them because they are quite familiar with the dead. And this is the burial rituals, and this is actually the images of the dead. It's from wood, and they carve it. It really look like that. And this one, another traditional ritual in Sumba. So we have still a lot of traditional rituals in Indonesia, although people have been influenced by Christianity, by Islam, by Buddhism. The Sumbanese people, for instance, they are actually Christians, but they still perform these rituals. And also the Torajans. The Torajans are actually Christians. Most of them are Christians, but they still do their traditional rituals. And the church cannot change that. It's very difficult to change the tradition. And they really try to keep that tradition. If you go to Toraja, I think you'll realize that. It's quite different. And also if you go to Sumba, because if you go to Sumba, then you'll find some traces of what we call megalithic culture. You use big stones, heavy stones, for the burial of the people. Now, if you look at the livelihood, we have agricultural, horticulture, and then plantation. Some people have corn and trading. And on the coast, we have fishery. And since colonial time, we have plantation. Some people try to open plantation, coffee, tea, lada, what's lada? Pepper. Now, this is sawah culture, but this is in West Flores. It's very interesting because it's centered. It's very different from the one in Java. You see that the pattern of the Sawas is centered, and it's related to the kinship system of the local people. Because we do this based on the social organization, local organization, which is based upon the local kinship system. If you compare this West Flores rice fields, this is rice fields, with the one in Bali, like different. This is the one in Bali, with terrace, and they have also different social organization. We call it Subak. And Subak social organization really organize the way people exploit the sawah and exploit the land in that area. So you see here patterns of adaptation among the people in different islands with different patterns. This one in transmigration area, South Sumatra. Again, this is horticulture. We plant what they call kangkong. What is kangkong? Some just like vegetables. You plant it there. You share it with water. And this is in transmigration area. It's opened by the Japanese. And you look at this, you have also modernization of rice agriculture. They used to have water buffaloes, but today some of them have these tractors as a placement. This you see there in Java especially, because they usually still have large plot of rice fields, and they can use the tractors. It's difficult, of course, to use tractor like here. It's very difficult, so it's not quite adaptable to this kind of. Usually people just use what is it, changkong? Just to mango. Okay. Then, if you look at the traditional political system, this is a little bit so that you can compare with Taiwan. Before the contact with the West, we have kinship-based political system, which is actually extended family political system. In this polity, we have several groups that form a community headed by an old man, we call it, orang tua, or old man, or respected old man. And we still have that, especially among the Kubus, the orang Sakai, the Tuana. These are small ethnic groups, but they're still alive as in the past, because they are nomad. They move from place to place, slash and burn agriculture, something like that. And they still live in Sumatra, the Kubu in Sumatra, orang Sakai, but the Tuana live in Sulawesi. And then you have network-based political system. You have big man, headman, a political system which consists of several communities connected through kinship and patron-client relationship. This is especially you can find among the Malays, among the Papuans, among the Japanese. We have also this kind of political system. And then the last one is more familiar with you, territorial-based political system. This is actually what we find today. State political system. Politics consists of several communities living in particular area. So the area is already defined. You see the territory, and with rather clear boundaries, headed by a ruler or a king. You can find this among the Malay, the Chinese, the Javanese, the Balinese. So you see in Indonesia 3 kinds of political systems, and these still alive. That's why it's not quite easy to govern all these traditional political systems, because people still cling to their traditional system. So when they have contact with the West, you have some changes. You have trade relationships with the Europeans, and then you have political contract relationships, especially with the Dutch, or some of them became colonized. So you have colonized relationships. So we have here 3 types or 3 patterns of relationships with the West, with the Portuguese, or with the British, or with the Dutch at that time. We have trading relationships, we have political contract relationships, and then we have colonized relationships. So we see here also different patterns of relationships due to different political systems. You see that variations of situation among the people in Indonesia. So actually it's not very easy to get a general picture of Indonesia because of this kind of patterns, of different patterns in different areas. Then in Nusantara, I mean the area at the time it was not called Indonesia. People have no ideas about Indonesia before 1928. We call it Nusantara then. Became more or less of some European peoples like Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British. So these are the colonizers of this area from the West at the time. The first is the Portuguese, then came the Dutch, and then the British, and then after that the Dutch again. Now, because of their context with the West, you see local young elites got Western education. Then they have some consciousness about the similarity of their position toward the West. Then young elites form social organization. And you have consciousness of colonial relationships. The young who got education, usually they are from upper layer of societies, nobles or descendants of rulers. They realize that they are colonized people in this case. So they have consciousness of that kind of relationship. Then they have what we call the vow of the youth. This is very important event in Indonesian history because this is the first national consciousness among the Indonesians about what Indonesia is at the time. And it was in October 28, in 1928. So it's almost 100 years. 90 years. What is the power of the youth? It consists of three things. It said, we are of one nation, satu bangsa, Indonesian nation. Although actually the name Indonesia comes from the West, but it is taken by the Indonesian that we are one nation, Indonesian. We are of one country, Indonesian country. And then we respect highly a unifying language, Indonesian language. So you see in Indonesian history, this vow of the youth. This is very, very important event in Indonesian history. Because of this, that you have consciousness as a nation, and you have country, and then you have one language. Because it's not very easy if we look at the situation then, that we have so many ethnic groups, and yet we can speak one unifying language. That is Bahasa Indonesia, which actually comes from Malay. But why does it come from Malay? Because Malay has been used as trading language, or we call it lingua franca language for the area. So those Indonesian or those people who live on the coast, trade with one another, and most of them use Malay, what we call Malay market, Melayu pasar, or market Malay, market Malay. Malay, which is used for trading, and that is different from the Malay used by the nobles in court, in the palaces. That's why in the past it's not quite a respected language, but because many people speak that, then it can become unifying language. Then Indonesian elites form political parties. This is very important because through these political parties, they can struggle for independence. Then 1942, the Japanese invaded what they call Netherlands India. Netherlands India is actually the area of Nusantara, more or less. Because some of them, Nusantara is actually bigger than Netherlands India. But the Japanese invaded Netherlands India and defeated the Dutch. And then in 1945, we know that the Japanese surrendered to the Allies because Hiroshima was bombed. And they surrendered. And Indonesia proclaimed independence on August 17, 1945. This is the date of Indonesian independence, August. And who are the leader? The leader were Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta. And Sukarno is a Javanese, and Muhammad Hatta is a Minangkabau. Minang. They form a government which is a republic and democratic. And they also form people's representative, what we call assembly, and also local people's representative. Sukarno and Hatta became president, actually with Hatta until 1956. But then after 1956, Hatta stepped down because he didn't really agree with the policies of Sukarno. So they separated, and so Sukarno became the only leader, the only president. And Sukarno at the time is like the West, anti-West, and built close relationships with China and Russia. They are closer to the left group. Then in September, this is also an important event in Indonesian history, September 30th, 1965, they have what they call G30 September movement, or 30 September movement, gerakan 30 September. And it was led actually, or according to some theories, it was led by communists, but according to some others, it's actually a conflict within the army. But apart from that, then the communists were accused as the rebellion. Then they were crushed by Suharto, and Suharto is the general in the army. Then Suharto established what we call the New Order. It was in 1961, and this is very important changes in Indonesian history. Then from 1965 to 1970s, you have political and social consolidation. Suharto tried to stabilize the country. And then from 1970s up to 1997, so Suharto ruled almost, more than 30 years. It's about 32 years. We have stable politics and economic development. At that time, a lot of changes in Indonesia, a lot of developments to have what we call Pancasila democracy. So the Indonesians tried to establish or to create democratic society, but without leaving the state's principles. That is the Pancasila. So we call it the democracy is Pancasila democracy, which is democracy which is based on 5 principles of Indonesia. Then we have every 5 year what we call 5-year development program, and this is very important. If you compare today with Indonesia today, the problem is that we don't have this kind of things, and that's what people think that with the development of Indonesia is not as stable at that time. We have also transmigration, and of course family planning, and development of communication and transportation. So if you look at the history of the New Order in Indonesia, you'll see a lot of development during this year. It took about 25 years. 5 pelita. We have a lot of developments, and of course, closer relationships with the West, because when Suharto took power, then the West really helped Indonesia through what you call World Bank and IMF and so forth. And then we have financial crisis in 1997, and then Suharto stepped down, and after that we have what you call reformation order. This is different again from the situation before that, because we have what they call decentralization. If we look at the situation in Asia during Suharto's era or during the New Order, then you'll see that the political system is quite centralized. Everything is decided by Jakarta, was decided by people in Jakarta, by cabinet, Suharto's cabinet in Jakarta. And then you just flow the money, the program to other areas in Indonesia. It's really quite centralized. But after that, we have what we call decentralization. You give more autonomy to the areas. And this is quite different. And the autonomy is on the level of what we call regency, not province. Because if you give what we call decentralization to province, yeah, people are afraid that Aceh, Papua will go their own way and separate from Indonesia. So the decentralization is go to the lower level, yeah, that is the regency. So in that case, we have a lot of now the new developments, yeah, at the level of the regencies. We have then democratization without using the word Pancasila. But then we realize that that is again a problem. We have anti-corruption movement, which is was not there when Suharto was in power. And then, of course, a lot of medias, what we call mediatization today. A lot of changes due to communication technology or IT. Then the president of government, Joko Widodo, known as Jokowi, proclaimed what we call mental revolution. Yeah? We should be able to think out of the box. Yeah? We should be able to think differently from the period before, so that we can make a lot of changes or transformation within Indonesian society. And then building infrastructure outside Java, especially in Papua, Sulawesi, and of course strengthening border areas and outer islands. This is quite important, yeah? Because Jokowi then give more emphasis to the outer border. Yeah? If Suharto pays attention to the central government, then Jokowi give more attention to those further areas, yeah, on the border in Indonesia. Now, if you look at what we call cultural pluralism, yeah, then you see that we have actually many ethnic groups. Yeah. If we look at the number of the ethnic groups, actually we have this 740 local languages. Can you imagine? Yeah. Indonesia, you know, with that area, you have 740 local languages. These are the languages that have been identified. That means that we know that the language exists. But maybe it can be more than that. Because we think that some languages are not yet identified. Because they are very remote languages. You know that local language in Indonesia, some of them, the speakers are only maybe one village. One village with one language. What I mean is real language, not dialect. Dialect is different. This is a real language. So that when you speak to them, you cannot understand. And they want to understand your language. So this is really language. So we have 740 languages. You can imagine if you have national program and you want to introduce to them your program and they cannot understand what you say, what you can do then? Yeah? This is very big problem for us. But also our pride, because we have so many local languages. And 420 languages, more or less, have been mapped. It means that we know the boundary of the language. Oh, this is in this area. Oh, that is in that area. The others, we do not. So only half of them have been mapped. The rest should be mapped so that we know where the boundary of this language. Of course, some languages spread more to other areas compared to other languages because the people moved. Like if you look at the Javanese, or well in Java you have also, of course, the boundary you can see. Oh, in this part the Javanese and there the Sundanese, but the Javanese also moved to Sumatra, moved to Sulawesi. The Balinese moved also to Sumatra and Sulawesi. So with some languages, you'll see that the boundary is not quite strict. But in some places, you'll see that the language have been made and you know the boundaries of that language. Then what about religion? We have 6 acknowledged religion. What I mean acknowledged is accepted by government. That is Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Catholic, Protestant, and Confucianism. This is the last one. Actually, it used to be only 5. But after Gus Dur became president, then Confucianism became the 6th religion and its setting. Now, you still have numerous local belief systems. This is the situation in Indonesia. And the education actually still on the middle level, junior and senior high school. Not many people can go to universities. And economy is based on agriculture. Now, if we look at the variation of culture, we can see this especially on the houses. For you, maybe quite new because the architecture, but it's what I call vernacular architecture. You see here, Balinese traditional house, and then Dayak's traditional house. You can find still in Kalimantan, in some places, people still in what they call long house. And you have your rooms for each family. So this is actually a big house for an extended family. So you have several families over there. This you can still find in Kalimantan. Of course, not in every village, but in some places you can find that. But in Bali, of course, you can find that a lot of. And then beautiful Minang house with different roofs. You see different styles. This is Minangkabau traditional house. You can find this in Sumatra. And then we have Japanese, of course, traditional house. When you go to Java, you'll see this kind of houses. You see here the roof usually become the identity of that house. And also, of course, the rooms over there. But mostly we can see the difference because of the roofs of these houses. And then we have Sumbani's traditional house. This is not very easy, it's quite high. And it's not easy to get because we need a lot of what is that? We call it certain leaves, and today there are not many more. And then we have, of course, Toraja traditional house, and of course the Papuans, in Papua. So you have actually in Indonesia different styles of vernacular architecture, and of course you have different philosophies behind these houses. Different belief systems concerning the houses. Even the way to build the houses is always different. They need certain architects, local architects, to build these kind of things. Because the modern architects do not know about these kind of things. And in the universities, this kind of things is not learned. These are all learned through traditional, what is that? Traditional ways of inheriting the knowledge. And then we have these religions and the local belief system. This is the local belief system. Kejawen, Sudawiwitan, Perbeku, Keharingan. You see that among the Javanese, you still have what we call Kejawen. Among the Sudanese, you have Sudawiwitan. Among the Pataki, you have Perbeku. These are still the local belief system, which are still alive. And today, the government can accept that. People may put their local belief system in your ID card. In the past, you may not do that. You should be either Muslim, Christian, something like or Buddhist, but today you can put this. After people struggle for this. And then government realized, okay, then you may put that. Actually, people still prefer this local belief system rather than those religions. This is what happened in Indonesia today. You still have that. Now, if you can look at the population and the number of the followers of religions, then you see Islam, of course, the majority. And then you have Protestant, and then Catholic, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and then the others. These others, I mean the local belief systems. So actually, the majority are Muslims in Indonesia, and it was in 2010. Maybe a little bit changes, but I don't think it's quite different the situation today. If you look at the religious building, you see there. Differences again. If we look at traditional architecture, you see different houses, if you look at religious buildings, then you see also differences again. Yeah? This is Hindu temples in Bali. You see here, yeah, many roofs, yeah, and it actually symbolizes the significance of these temples. The higher is the better, yeah? The temples. And then we have, of course, Buddhism. This is Borobudur, you know very well. Yeah? This is Buddha statue, which is in the upper part of Borobudur. And then this Borobudur from above, if you look at the surroundings, it's beautiful. Yeah? That's why many people like to go up to Borobudur and then look at the surroundings area, because you can see, especially in the morning, beautiful sceneries there. And then, of course, temples from India. You can find this in Medan, Sumatra, yeah? Because of the influence of the Indian people. And many Indians actually came to that area. They have their own temples. It's a little bit more like, what is that? Kumbali's temple, but it's different here. And then, of course, Chinese temple. You can find a lot, yeah, in Indonesia, in several places. I think you see this. Yeah? And also in Thailand, maybe you can make some comparison. Yeah? The difference between Indonesian Chinese temples in Taiwan. And this is mosque, yeah, of course. Yeah? You know that, this big mosque in Central Java. And of course, they have also the cathedral. So you see, we have different kinds of religious buildings. Actually, religious buildings themselves are influenced also by the local architecture. Actually, we have Japanese architecture of cathedral, or church, yeah? And we have also Japanese architecture of mosque, which is different model. Now, we could look at the cultural issues. Yeah? What are the issues of culture in Indonesia? First, westernization, yeah, and globalization. This is our big issues in Indonesia. Yeah? We have increasing cultural influence of the West, yeah, and the Japanese, and the Korean, and the Chinese. Yeah? Because since from the past we have already got or met in contact with other people, then we have, of course, yeah, we have Western influence, especially in ideology, values, technology, and lifestyles, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's. Those are things of fashion, and technology, of course, values, and then Japanese Korean influence, creative industries, music, movie, fashion, lifestyles. You see now in Indonesia more influence from Koreans. This is interesting. The older generation are not quite interested in Korean culture, but the present day generation, they are interested in Korean culture and Japanese culture. And then, of course, Chinese influence over on culinary, food, drinks. We see that a lot of Chinese influence. And then, what about the views of the local people? We have some negative views, neutral views, and positive views. Rather negative views as to the West and the Chinese. Why? Because the West, very different cultural values. They may change the values of the people. So some of them are really very concerned about that. And then the Chinese is more because economic domination. They are actually not many, but in terms of economic power, they are powerful. And then neutral views. Actually, the Japanese was they got negative views from Indonesia, but today it's different. Because now less economic domination and more to creative industries for the youth, like manga, maybe you know that, Japanese comics, and then Japanese lifestyle for the youth, like cosplay, maybe you know that. Those are very influential among Indonesian youth, and maybe also among Taiwanese. And of course, positive views about Korean. This is interesting because a lot of creative industries for the youth come from Korea, like movie, music, fashion, fashion especially for women, for girls, They like that very much. And then, of course, radicalization of Islam. This is the present issue today. Yeah? With increasing influence of radical Islam. We call it radical Islam. That's because of the ideology. This is what they call Khilafah, new political system. We know that because of influences from outside, especially from Iran Revolution, Afghanistan War, Ikhwanul Muslimin, ISIS in Syria, then they got the ideas about pan-Islam political system, and they are interested in that. Some younger Muslim generation are interested. When I was a student, Iran Revolution really became inspiration for the students. But after that, Afghanistan War, they can defeat the Russian. And then you heard about Ikhwanul Muslimin in Egypt. And then the last one, you had ISIS in Syria. These are the things that influence some Indonesians, some Muslims, about the new political system, which is based more on Islamic principles, which is different from the one we have in Indonesia. Now, some of the problems of the Muslims is Muslim problems of allegiance. Whether you support Pancasila or you support Islamic principles. This is, of course, not easy dilemma. And then you choose state ideology or you choose religion. This again, not very easy dilemma. The question is always put like this. That's why it's not very easy to be discussed. But now a lot of discussion on this. Should we make a position, or should we just make that into one? Actually, it's not opposed to one another. This is just complementary. That's actually the discussion today. Now, due to the influences, we have views on the influence. They have positive and negative. You have opposite groups today. You have radical Muslims and you have moderate Muslims. The radical Muslims really want Khilafah with the influence of ISIS in Syria, Ikhwanul Muslim in Egypt. And then you have moderate Muslims and Muhammadiyah. They are now moderate Muslims. Really support the state. And those who feel threatened by the radical Muslims, they are the non-Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Christian, Catholics, and of course, local believers, people who still cling to their traditional belief system. Then you have then, if you look at the today's opposing groups, Khilafah supporters and NKRI and KRI supporters. That is, Khilafah is new pan-Islam political ideology, and KRI is a Negara Kesatuan Republik Indonesia or United States Republic of Indonesia. We have these two big issues, and how should we deal with them? Now this is the problem of the present day Muslims and Indonesians. Now, although you have all those influences, we have to realize that in Indonesia there are still many villages, traditional villages like this, in Flores, and then, excuse me, Professor Nabil, until what time should I? Okay, okay, maybe more, a little bit more. This is a village in West Flores, Manggarai, quite well known among the tourists because of this pattern, quite traditional, and sometimes it looks prehistoric, something like that, and just like this. If you go to Flores, you still can find these traditional villages. Many, I think, in some places. It's quite old, and it's interesting. Although they are Catholics, most Flores are Catholics, but they live in this little village, and still they have performed their, because this is actually the center of the village, and they perform traditional rituals there. Ancestor worship is still performed. And then we have also where you see here, this place, the center for the rituals of the whole village. So you have sometimes these kind of things. Village, traditional village, and You see here people live there, not one family of course, but extended family, with one ancestor, sometimes, yeah. And then if you need more place, then you move and open new villas in other area. This is environment. This is quite well known. And then Toraja, again different. You see different villages, different style of architecture, different social organization again. If you look at here, Toraja, it's not easier. This is to create a traditional house there. Okay, this is kampong. Many style of this in Jogja. If you go to Jogja, you will find. So we have what we call problems of urbanization. So we have cultural globalization, and then radicalization, and then urbanization. Increasing urban population, increasing urban areas, urban lifestyles. Now we have, of course, housing problems in urban areas, poverty, not in every city, of course, but in some places we have poverty, increasing urban social stratification, increasing crimes in urban areas, lack of social services, and rural lack of workers, because many people go to cities, then